when I have to explain why I don't want to eat carbohydrates, their reactions are rather cold. Why you are doing this? It's bad for you. It's a culture. What's wrong with you? They're trying to convince me. Yeah, it is very hard to be a carnivore in Japan if you are very socially active person.
Sammy, how did you find carnivore?
Yes, it wasn't such a thing to say that, hey, look at Dr. Sean Baker, look at the Dr. Chafee. Not like that. I was severely suffering from eating disorders. And I came across the diet called ketogenic diet. Back then, it was 2016, 17, somewhere around. And when I was suffering from an eating disorder, I went to psychiatrists. All of them prescribed anti-seizure drugs. For whatever the reason, I didn't know. Then I studied the fact that, ketogenic diet is for epileptic children, the children with epilepsy. A ketogenic diet has efficacy of anti-seizure. And then I thought to myself, maybe, since I had been taking an anti-seizure drug, ketogenic diet is anti-seizure. It might work, I thought. And then it did work tremendously. So I, kind of got into ketogenic diet. Admittedly, I was vegan, so I dove into plant-based ketogenic diet. Crazy, right? And then though, but yes, ketogenic diet, even plant-based ketogenic diet actually solved my 25 years of severe eating disorder. Little bit touch upon my severity of the eating disorder this moment. I was always bulimic. And then as a compensation of binge eating, I took 250 laxatives a day, 250 laxatives a day. And a self-induced vomiting every day, 25 years, which actually dissolved by ketogenic diet. But I had a kind of a gastrointestinal issues, like a bloating, gas, a pain, all of that, which didn't solve by just a ketogenic diet. And then, I don't know where I got the idea of carnivore. It wasn't called carnivore, zero carb diet, whatnot. And then I thought that, okay, I'm going to try zero carb diet. If you do that, naturally, it's going to be carnivore diet, isn't it, Dave? Right? So then I, found myself doing just eat meat, which was 2018. So nearly over 8 years ago, I found carnivore.
So can we just take a step back? I want to understand, what was the reason they gave you anti-seizure drugs? How does that work with the ED?
Yeah, great question. This is something I didn't know. Back then, there was no Google. I went to library and, went through the books and all of that. Even there wasn't a big portion of information about bulimia. They had anorexic conditions. Some of the superstars died because of the anorexia. But back then, it was, I don't know, 2000, early 2000. It's difficult or impossible to know what causes a bulimic condition, let alone the application of a seizure drug. Of course, I asked my psychiatrist, but they didn't know. They say things like, anecdotally, and a seizure drug works for eating disorders. At the moment, I was so desperate. Even dangerous drug, I would have tried that. So nobody knows. Maybe these days, some people know about the mechanism, but now though, I have zero symptom to think about eating disorder. Why bother? So maybe I should have known.
So, you've been on a carnivore diet since 2018. Um, and how, like, everything's changed for you? Like, even from being on keto before that, like, the way you, I don't know, the way you perceive yourself and all that kind of thing, that's flattened out, that's stable now?
All right. As I mentioned, I started from just a ketogenic diet, plant-based ketogenic diet. The previous time, I was suffering from the eating disorder. I was terrified about consumption of fat. Fat makes you fat, of course, right? And so going to the McDonald's or the normal burgers and French fry, I pick up the paper napkin, squeeze, crack out of the fat to death. And that's a phobia of fat. Now I incorporated fat. It wasn't the fat. I was consuming oil, plant oil, because I'm plant-based. I was plant-based. And I got used to consuming a lot of oil, the fat. I was already didn't feel like, oh, I'm doing something bad by increasing fat consumption. That is why, transition from plant-based ketogenic dieter into carnivore wasn't a big deal. I got used to it, and just I realized that some benefits from switching to carnivore diet. Let's say three. One is energy. Energy went through the roof, obviously, from the plant-based person. Secondly, or maybe most importantly, my gastrointestinal issue resolved overnight, especially bloating. I was so skinny, and then my tummy was almost pregnant woman. Woman. So I saw my tummy flat. Of course, I was convinced by that. And lastly, intermittent fasting. When I was, plant-based ketogenic diet, longer than 14 hours of fasting was too difficult. I was agitated, after 14 hours later. But now, carnivore is damn easy. You don't need to think about when I'm going to break my fasting, right? Everybody feels that. So getting almost instant, quick benefits. I didn't have such a kind of what I'm gonna do, what the diet is gonna be. I didn't think about this way. Just a surge of my confidence. Just it keep going up to this moment to come. Even cancer diagnosis doesn't bother my desire to be carnivore.
So, just on that, could you talk a little bit about the cancer diagnosis, please?
Mhm. Yeah. Cancer diagnosis was 3.5 years ago. And what's unique about my situation is that before my cancer diagnosis, I had known the application for ketogenic diet for cancer because I studied the ketogenic diet back then. And also the fact that I realized that one more thing. Before my diagnosis, I had been on carnivore already 5 years. And then I noticed that the reason I didn't die was due to carnivore keto diet. Let's say keto carnivore diet, high fat carnivore to be exact. That is why, despite of the deadly kind of a terminal stage 4 colon cancer, I wasn't so upset. Yeah, of course, I was a little bit, the upsetting feeling in my gut, but still I believed that what I was doing is going to work.
Stage 4 colon cancer, I mean, based on what you hear in the news, a lot of people would immediately say it's because of all that meat you've been eating. So was
Yes,
that never a concern for you?
yes, Dave. How many times I've been asked, don't you think your carnivore caused colon cancer? I have been asked, I don't know, thousands of times, not thousands, but dozens of times. But here's the true story. My cancer formation should have been in my early 20s. As I touched upon, I was severely suffering from an eating disorder where I'm taking laxatives and, the psychiatric medicine for 25 years. Here's the thing. Your body is very capable of dealing with short burst, big stressors, right? But in terms of the, when you think about it, 25 years or all of that, insult to your colon, insult to your system, 25 years is long enough, severe enough to cause the mitochondria to dysfunction, which leads to cancer formation. So my cancer was in my 20s, I'm 51, and a long, long time ago. Despite of this, because of the the carnivore diet, let's say high-fat carnivore didn't let me die. It's a quite opposite. Because of the carnivore, I didn't die. Thank you for this question.
So, like, what is the status of things at the moment? Like, are you doing any kind of treatment, or is your treatment basically your diet?
Okay, here's the thing. Let me talk about my metastasis. After the surgery, which was 3.5 years ago, soon after my diagnosis, I had a tremendously intensive, severe, painful surgeries rather, because I developed a complication which needed another surgery. And chemo, during the chemo, soon after the surgeries, I developed the metastasis to my liver, which suggests that it could be due to the inflammation coming from the stress and the operation and the chemo, which inflamed me to the point that if you are inflamed, your glucose goes up. It's a natural response. And as you already know, the glucose feeds cancer. Cancer got fed by inflammation. That's my opinion on the first metastasis. On top of that, if you are on chemo, most likely it's a very, very, very difficult for you to stick to carnivore diet. Your appetite drops and your kind of taste buds go wild. Even I ate crap. My friends who got cancer on carnivore, they said the exact same thing. They were eating cookies and crackers and stuff. Your taste buds doesn't follow carnivore diet because of the severity of the chemo side effect. I was one of those. So that's allowed my body to develop the first metastasis. Second metastasis was my lung, which was 1.5 years ago. Even I was on Dr. Sean Baker's show saying that, hey, carnivore, you can manage cancer with carnivore, but I was having a new metastasis in my lung. Here is why. At the moment, I was overconfident, forgetting that as a cancer patient, we have to lower the glucose level as low as possible. But since I'm carnivore, eating meat shouldn't be the problem. To the point that I increased the protein intake way, way, way higher than my needs. So I did that, I think nearly a year. That's 1 year of high protein carnivore gave me new metastasis in my lung. Since then, I realized the importance of the stick to high fat carnivore diet. So it's been 1.5 years where I happened to go back to the hospital, meaning that I denied the operation for new metastasis, lung and liver. But guess what, David? I have zero symptoms, no pain coming from cancer. So meaning that I haven't gotten any so-called modern medicine approach. What I do as my cancer management modalities is the first pillar is obviously high fat carnivore. And two, exercise. It's not the something I do exercise for cancer management. Exercise is my passion. I really love training. So this is the thing I do on an everyday basis. Sadly, which makes me feel a little bit embarrassed by saying that, previously I didn't realize the importance of sun exposure. Because, Dave, you know this, Asian people are obsessed with being white. We want to be Caucasian, right? The sun make you tan, so we don't want to do that. So I was one of those kind of the people believe that whiter the better ideology in terms of the beauty. So, but recently I studied quantum biologies and of course, circadian biologies and all of that. I was terrified. I was missing the good stuff, which is sunlight. Now I try to expose myself in the sun and getting suntan. This is one of the modalities. And another thing though is that, of course, try to get the let's say optimized my sleep, which I'm not very good at because of the fact that I had a very severe childhood PTSD, which is still dragging my sleep pattern down. But I got the emotional code coach, Sarina. She takes care of my PTSD, try to get rid of the trapped emotions I got in my childhood. And also sun exposure, diet, the health, emotional code coach. All of them synergistically have started to work quite recently. Now, last night, I got nearly 7 hours of sleep. I'm very proud of, proud of it. Yes, this is my kind of the methodologies to take care of my cancer. I wouldn't say I'm going to cure cancer. I am perfectly managing my cancer.
Right. Nice. So we both live in Japan.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know what kind of feedback you had, I guess, a year and a half ago when you last saw your doctor. Like, because it for me, it feels here like when I see a doctor, it's very, whatever the guidelines are, that's what they're gonna say, and they're basically gonna look at you like you're crazy if you don't want to do the standard kind of guideline therapy, whether that's an operation or chemo or you need to do this, you need to do this. That's what the book says. How did they react?
Okay, first and foremost, I have to tell you one thing is that I don't have a Japanese friends and some, acquaintances. That is why I don't need to worry about my friends' feedback in terms of the carnivore diet reaction. But the doctors, yes, you know this stuff. You know this, that one of the most conservative doctors on this planet. That is why they think I'm just a crazy person, just having an eating disorder, refusing to eat carbohydrate. So the thing is that I wanted to have a better relationship with my medical team, doctors and surgeons and nurses, all of that. But when I try to kind of explain carnivore, actually, I didn't say carnivore, just say low carb diet for cancer treatment. It's well documented, right? Ketogenic diet was one of the most studied diets on this planet. They should have known, but they didn't know, in ridicule. And to the point that I decided that, okay, I'm not going to have a communication with them. Whatever, no matter how I tried to explain things, they couldn't understand. So yeah, that is that. So they just think me as a crazy lady, go mental. Oh, by the way, I was once told that they wanted to refer me to the psychiatrist during my hospitalization. Incredible.
Because you like related to not wanting to eat carbohydrate, they wanted to refer you to a psychiatrist.
Yes, eating disorder, right? Yeah, carnivore eating
That's
disorder.
terrible.
Mm.
That's terrible. So day to day, how often are you eating and what is it made up of?
Yeah. This is a question again. I get asked quite often. The fact that over the course of I think the 5 or 6 years, I eat twice a day. First meal is normally 6 to 7 a.m. and the second meal is 11 a.m., meaning that I eat my dinner 11 a.m. After that, I'm not going to eat anything until next morning, not because I try to do intermittent fasting. No. It's natural. Naturally, my eating, the meal timings are landing on this way, very early morning style. Partially due to the fact that I noticed that I am a early bird, extreme early bird. I wake up 2, 3 a.m. and I go to bed. I know. Yeah, and I go to bed and 7:30 to 8. And so doing that, my friends call it SST, Sami Standard Time, not JST. So that's a SST I'm on. And then this is the way. And then the quantity is this is something I normally don't track. If I'm hungry, I eat more. But because of the frequency of the questions, hey Sami, how much do you eat? And what is the ratio? I calculated in my videos that averagely speaking, I eat, let's say, 300 gram as a breakfast and then 400 gram as a dinner, plus and minus, and then 3 egg yolks and some kimchi, sometimes natto. It's a horror. Are you able to eat natto as a carnivore? Yes, you can. In my opinion, meat is our food. Plants can be medicinal. Since my colon was compromised by the cancer and the surgical removal, that it needs help. That is why sometimes I incorporate kimchi or natto to boost my microbiome power.
Yeah, and I have heard like a lot of carnivores do have some fermented foods like kimchi or natto or uh what's the other one? Sauerkraut,
A craft.
things
Yeah,
like
they
that.
say.
Yeah. So when you say 300 grams or 400 grams, is that basically steak?
No, it depends. As you already know, Dave, Japanese people use chopsticks. So eating steak with chopsticks, it can be messy. That is why in Japanese market, majority of the cuts you can find in beef is actually thinly sliced. So that is why, and also thin sliced beef is the cheapest than grinded beef, right? Even many supermarkets don't carry grinded beef. Minced meat, grinded meat, are combination of beef and pork in Japan. That is why I end up eating a thinly sliced beef or mildly thickly sliced beef for financial reason.
Yeah, I think yeah, less and less I'm eating the ground beef here because yeah, I prefer to be making sure I'm getting 100% beef rather than the pork. Do you know why that is? Why do they mix it?
Yeah, I kind of did a little bit research about it. I think it could be due to the fact that Asian people love pork. Southern Asian, Eastern Asian, Okinawan, they are pork eaters. Our taste buds are really got used to eating pork over, I think, cows. Historically, I think the cow productions aren't so kind of implemented into Eastern Asian cultures compared to the Europeans. That's why still our taste buds love pork. That is why many restaurants even they are bragging about, hey, we increased the pork to kind of the taste milder, taste better, all of that. They don't put the way importance to the pure, beef minced meat. Just a culture thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like in most cases, I prefer red meat. Like, but if I go to a shabu shabu restaurant in Japan, pork is much better for me there. I'm not sure why, but I prefer the taste of pork in shabu shabu than
Maybe the, okay, here's my assumption. If you shabu shabu beef, it's easy to get hardened. hardened. The pork, short duration of the heat, the pork meat not gonna get shrunken. Just keep its soft texture. That's what I would
actually, I
say.
think you're right. I think you're right because that hardening of the beef makes it taste because it's
Oh,
basically boiled water, right? So that hardening of the beef, it doesn't taste as good.
I know.
Mm.
I feel the same way.
Yeah. Interesting. So you never feel like eating rice. I mean,
Oh yeah,
that's one thing I think about when I think about Japanese people doing carnivore. It's so far removed from the culture. Like
yeah.
I always feel like it
You're
seems to be
violating.
it's taking something away from your culture to not be eating rice, to not be eating these things. How do you feel about that?
Oh, the good point. Good point. The the I am not the one of the typical Japanese people where put the importance to the passing down the Japanese culture, all of that. Hence, I don't have a Japanese friends. But the sometimes though, when you when I have to explain why I don't want to eat carbohydrates, their reactions are rather cold. Why you are doing this? It's bad for you. Bad for it's a culture. What's wrong with you? They're trying to convince me. Yeah, it is very hard to be a carnivore in Japan if you are very socially active person. So how about you? How do you deal with your diet, regime in the contents of the social eating?
I think for someone like myself, it's much easier to do it in Japan than it would be for a Japanese person, simply because you're always going to be looked at as the crazy foreigner. Even if you're not doing carnivore, even if you're not doing carnivore, yeah, even if you're not doing carnivore. So, you know, I think, and also in restaurants here,
Mhm.
it's there's barbecue restaurants like yakiniku restaurants, or if you go to a family restaurant, it's kind of it's normal to order just like a little grill where you can cook your beef or something. So it's possible to do it. And for as a foreigner to say, I don't want rice, or I don't want this, or I don't want that, it seems like, well, Japanese people just assume foreigners are going to be a little strange and picky about certain things, so it's fine.
Mm.
But yeah, I've always thought it's I've never been able to imagine a situation where socially a Japanese person could go out with their friends and say, yeah, I'm not eating rice at the moment if everyone's eating rice, or yeah, I don't eat mochi or something like that. It just seems like so like abrasive to the culture.
Basically, yeah, that is why I sometimes tell a lie. I have a celiac disease or I have a whatever the allergic reaction. So please accept my like a request. It's a medical needs rather than my dietary preference. Actually, I teach the people who are having a hard time to making a condition to eat just meat at the restaurants. Tell the waiters or kitchen that, hey, I have a certain allergic reaction. It's very, very serious. Please remove this stuff. Especially in Japan, back then, maybe when came to Japan, and there was no such a customized service at the restaurants. So some tweak, for example, oh, please remove the sauce or sugar, or please don't marinate your yakiniku, which is a meat at a yakiniku restaurant. They didn't accept that. No, 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 this is our style. If you don't like it, go away. That was the thing. But because of the Americanization, Americans are very picky choosy, right, at the restaurants, which is great. And we have incorporated a kind of a customization of the meal, just like the Starbucks. You're gonna say anything about your coffee at the Starbucks, low fat, high fat, and the syrup, non-syrups, and crazy stuff. They accept that with smile face. That's the customer service we learned from the North America, which is great. That is why I would say, oh, I have a certain, even I made myself diabetic, saying that, oh, I have a diabetes. I can't, drink a, syrup, the beverage. I say that, to protect yourself. You have to be a liar in Japan at a certain restaurants.
I think that's a good strategy. It's like I've got an allergy or I've got this condition or whatever I need to. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes not only the restaurants themselves are kind of against your request, but also your friends. Even I say, hey Dave, I'm diabetic, so I can't, eat a carbohydrate, even though your let's say grandma made a homemade brownies and cookies and all of that. I can't eat that. But if Dave says to me, hey, can't you eat just a one bite? It's a very, kind of an emotionally special meal. Why you can't eat that? If you have such a situation, this is a great opportunity for you to take an inventory of your friendship. Is Dave, who is a carb pusher, needs my life? I would say no. So that is one way to think about carb pushers.
That's a really good point. If someone is so desperate for you to eat something just to keep them or someone else happy at the expense of your dietary preferences or a condition that you have, yeah, you've got to take inventory then of, how important is this friendship, right?
Yeah, yeah. Even the person can be the person you love, like a grandma or auntie or someone. Still, you have to think about the fact that that the person you love is harming you. What is the point? You have to keep them in your circle. Even you tell them, I'm diabetic, or I have having a black markers, from the dental office. Still, they are pushing you, means that you have to draw the line. At least you might want to reduce the frequency of meeting them until they would understand what you are doing.
Yeah, so this always reminds me of situations where you've got someone who's an alcoholic and they want to give up alcohol, and they're still trying to socialize with their friends, but their friends get irritated because they're like, you're not the same anymore because you don't drink anymore. You're not the same person, and it's like, yes, but drinking together is more important than just being able to socialize. That seems a bit strange.
You know what, David? I think the psychology behind the car pusher, alcohol pusher, tobacco pusher, whatever the pushers are, bottom line, they were jealous. Jealous about your attempt to be healthy or improve yourself. They can't do it. That's why, the seeing you eat carbohydrate, that make them feel better. Hey, failure is here again. Yeah, it's kind of a ridiculous to think about, but it's very, very big deal. The jealous is a
Yeah,
foundation of them.
I think it's some kind of projection. It's almost like, I know I can't do this, so I don't want you to be able to do it either.
I think, vegans are like that. They mildly notice that, is it working? Why am I getting fat? Or why am I getting, some conditions? And look at us, carnivore community. It's too obvious. We are doing something great. That is why they want to be kind of angry, or, here's another analogy. And the many vegans attack the ranchers, like livestock, producers. They did that. They do that still, and doing some boycotts and making some law to destroy the ranchers' business. But the thing is that no carnivore does. No carnivore breaks their gates, and they say something like the protests and all of that. No carnivore, because we are chilled out. We are cool, calm, and collected because of the enough nutrients. The vitamin B12 is one of the obvious ones. They are lacking by B12, or not only B12, by the way. That is why they go so hysterical.
It really is. Yeah. So speaking of, just out of interest, has veganism ever been a big thing in Japan?
Oh, that's a good question. I think we know that veganism isn't a thing yet. But there is a certain kind of a small movement where, if you go to the restaurant and this menu is vegan, that menu is vegan. Going to the convenience store, 7-Eleven, vegan, what's that? Vegan muffin, vegan ice cream, whatever that means. I don't understand what is vegan ice cream. And yeah, gradually, slowly, discreetly, it's crept into our society. Not that big force, because let's face it, Deb, you know that Japanese people aren't plant-based. We, we historically, we've been eating the meat and fish and all of that. It's a center of our diet, cuisine. So that is why, and also, we don't speak English. Even though the, North Americans and, UK, somewhere around, kind of making a fuss about the veganism because of the language barrier, all right? So Japanese people don't know what's the meaning of vegan yet. We appreciate that, like an incapability of speaking English.
It's very interesting, the culture. I think the cultural difference gap is narrowing.
Still
Like, I feel it's narrowed in the last 18 years, but it's still very wide relatively, right?
Yeah, for some reason, because of the uh, the long distance from the North Americans and all of that, and the language barrier, somewhat that conditions keep us rather unique. Still, because of the Americanized idea coming to Japan after World War II ended, and also internet, instantly you're gonna get the information from North America. I'm not, talking about the North America is the source of bad information, but veganism is just something Western society created. That kind of stuff is coming to Japan very slowly, as you already mentioned it. It is happening, but at the same time, in the future, the carnivore is going to be a thing, chasing after vegan diet and a takeover one day.
One of these days, I want to do a video on my channel where I go to a busy train station or something in Japan and I just interview random Japanese people and I say, "Do you know what the carnivore diet is?" And then, just kind of say to them, "I haven't eaten any plants for the last 2.5 years," and just see the reactions. It's
Of course, you have a massive colon cancer, right? Or you are
right,
not
right, right.
with, cardiovascular events.
Yeah. So it'd just be interesting to see lots of reactions.
Right.
Yeah.
But still, even they don't know about ketogenic diet, low carb, a little bit low carb thing is, coming, but a ketogenic diet, very few people know. And then still, many products, food products, proudly say, look, our product is low fat, zero fat. They are, proud of their low fat.
So I kind of feel in terms of things like this, um, Japan seems to be as technologically advanced as Japan is, in a lot of these kind of food trends and things like that, it feels like, I don't know, it's maybe 10 years or so behind,
Yeah,
like
20.
something like that. And that's not a slight on Japan. It's just that it just seems like, yeah, the information doesn't filter through as quickly or something like that.
Exactly. That partially due to the fact that, medical literatures in Japan, coming from the overseas, needs to be, how to describe that, translated into Japanese. And professionally, it takes forever because Japanese procedures, the business is way, 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 way slow. Kind of the proofreadings and revamping all of that. That is why information got to be very, very, outdated. And also, Japanese people in general don't like change. That is why still we use fax machine, right? We use a banknote, like passbooks and all of that. We need to still doing a hanko stuff. Hanko is a sealing kind of the wooden structure. We are using that ancient stuff we've been using centuries, still doing that, let alone the diet guidelines where the doctors still believing that the answer keys, like cholesterol is bad and all of that. Still cholesterol is bad. Saturated fat is bad. Fat is bad. But Dave, this is my question. Is that to you? Is that Japanese people? Yes, we aren't plant-based, but we eat a hell of a lot of carbohydrate in the form of, let's say, rice and noodle. It's a center of Japanese cuisine culture. But compared to, let's say, Western societies, your country as well, and obesity rate isn't so high, obviously, at all. So what is a protective element of Japanese people's metabolic health compared to Westerns? What is your take on this?
I think it's a lot of things. I think it comes down to part of its culture, and part of it's the type of food.
Wait a
So
minute. What is a culture? You mean culture in this sense?
culture. So
Which culture?
think. So culture being like one of the things in Japan is you don't want to stand out, right?
Oh, yes.
So the nail that sticks out gets hammered down, right? So, for example, you can imagine school lunches, for example, just having school lunch in elementary school or junior high school or something. Um, if there's one kid that eats really quickly and then goes back for seconds and then goes back for thirds of rice and that kind of thing, right? That kid's going to look very weird, right? So it's almost like from being young, like people are trained into like, well, we have to kind of, look very similar to the way everyone
We are
else is
sheep.
eating and stuff, right? So you don't you can't stand out in that regard, right? So people aren't going to be overeating typically. And also um the culture is everything is in a small amount, you
Portion
know.
size, yeah.
Yeah, the portion so there isn't the risk of overeating. Like you go to some restaurants and they have like volume meals,
Hmm.
and it's like fried chicken piled up like crazy. But that's the exception, not the rule.
Mm. Right.
And so there's things like that. But I think also the food, even when it's carbohydrate, there's far less processing of that carbohydrate
I
than there is
see.
in Australia, for example, or America. But and far less additives because there's less processing.
Mm.
But that's changing, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
And there's a couple of scary things in Japan. And one is they don't have to label trans fats here.
Oh, do
They
they?
I think they still use trans fats and they don't have to label it.
Ah, I
So it's
see.
just fat. They don't have to label like this is trans fat, this is saturated fat, that. Um, so that's kind of scary.
Yeah,
And because that'll be in baked goods and stuff. And yeah, I think things are changing. It's becoming more processed, but
yeah, too,
it's still
too.
not as bad. It's still not as bad as but
Less bad, you are
yeah,
saying.
less bad, less bad.
I see, I
Yeah.
see. Because I've been living in Japan since I was born. That's why it's a difficult to see our culture from inside. But you have a more comprehensive outside of, was the observation
Mm.
through the lens of, outside, which is more easy for you to pinpoint what is the cause of, Japanese people's like a protective element in terms of the, metabolic, the function.
Yeah. Um, Japan now reminds me really of when I was at school, when I was in elementary school. There's like when I was in elementary school, there was like one fat kid,
Mm.
you know. And now in Australia, like, there's one thin kid, right? But and so Japan is like
Oh,
when I was at elementary school, there's like, if you're the fat kid, you kind of stand out still, right? Because typically everyone is still in shape and healthy and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's changing. And when you see, I don't know, commercials or you go to the doctor or things like that, there's a lot more signs about metabolic disease now than there used to be.
yes, yes, yes. Many, people have a guts that because uh, let's say genetically, we are not able to increase the number of fat tissues. Instead, the one fat is hypertrophies, becoming so big. If you do that, the fat leaks into your visceral area, becoming the
Mm,
big gut fat. This is a thing that I can't help realizing these days.
mm,
Many people in Japan,
mm.
but we look skinny, right? That is why
Oh yeah.
you guys observe, oh, Japanese people are skinny, or like a healthy as a hell. It's not like
Mm,
that these days. And also, sometimes I visit the old folks, facility, nursing home, where they are 80s and 90s and centenarians and all of that. They aren't healthy. They aren't happy at all. Just they are waiting to die. How miserable. There is a fantasized idea to think about the Japanese longevity, but I have to digress. I saw it, miserably dying slowly. Yeah, it doesn't have to be this way. If you are, old person, then running and doing things by yourself, and then one day you drop dead, which is good. But we can't allow to drop dead moment.
Yeah, it would be awful to get to the point where you're just kind of in a hospital bed somewhere, just being looked after, in that situation, just kind of waiting to die, right?
Mhm. That's a thing I always wanted to. Sometimes I make a video about it. People are surprised. Is it, the world portraits Japan as a, people have a ikigai, then all the people are happy, they're doing farmings and stuff. Not always like that.
There's always the kind of happy image put on, whether it's Japan or anywhere else. There's always kind of this the front image put on it, right? But not everyone's like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Dave, can I ask you several questions?
Sure.
I wanted to ask, because this is the second time, I wanted to ask you something about your opinion on several things. Number
Mm.
one is what do you think about salt intake on carnivore diet? Some of the people, no salt. Some of the people swear importance of the taking salt. I do kind of salt a lot for taste. What's your take on salt?
Yeah, I salt a lot for taste. For me, there's nothing better than steak. Cutting a piece of steak and then dipping it into salt, so there's salt granules on it, and
Oh,
uh, that's awesome. Um, and I drink a lot of water
oh, okay.
just because I'm always like I'm sitting down at the computer working or whatever, and I've always got the water with me, and I drink a lot. And so I think because I'm drinking a lot of water and I'm obviously going to be flushing my body out as a result of that, I think, yeah, eating a lot of salt is important for me.
Mm. I see, I see. You are saying that kind of your body needs salt intake,
Yes,
right? Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
yeah. I was wondering that Dr. Chaffee is one of the typical carnivores that he doesn't salt at all. Previously, he salted a lot, and he trusted his taste bud, which is incredibly right. But these days, he stopped salting. And genetically, is there any mutation that you don't need to salt? Here's my kind of not concerning, kind of a difficult part to understand his biology, Dr. Chaffee's biology. He's absolutely healthy. And but some salt pushers, the PhDs and doctors, which many are, and they are saying that the salt, without salt, your body is going to take the mineral out from your bones. And that kind of the study was something made me think that, okay, I needed to increase the salt intake. That's why I like to ask this question to, carnivore expert like yourself. You have talked to hundreds and hundreds and, great carnivores. And then I thought maybe you have a interesting thought on salt.
Yeah, I kind of feel it's along the same lines of just the way you eat on carnivore, Once you start to feel like it's not tasty anymore, then it's probably at the right level. It's the same with salt. Like if I have some salt and I feel like, oh, that was great, then I probably needed it. If I have some salt and it tastes like, I've just drunk a cup of seawater or something, then probably I didn't need it, that kind of thing.
Okay. One more question, can I ask you?
Sure.
Okay. So what do you think about fish intake on carnivore?
I think Well, I think it's important. I think I don't eat enough fish, and I don't eat
Do
the
you?
right kind. I don't. Yeah. I think I don't eat the right kinds. Like,
What
I
do you
just go
mean,
to the
right
soup,
kind?
like, it's probably farmed or something, it's probably not wild caught. Um, but
Difficult. It's a
yeah,
difficult.
yeah. But I'll have salmon occasionally, but I think I should probably eat more. I think I should probably eat more like sardines or something like that. But
Okay, okay.
yeah,
The reason I asked this question is because omega-3 contents in it's important to get the proper ratio omega-3s and omega-6s. But I don't eat grass-fed beef. In Japan, we don't have a grass-fed and all of that. Always ended up getting a grass-fed. Even the farmers, ranchers, are proud of their cows who've been fed longer duration of the grass feeding. They are, hey, look, we, give them the longer time of good, grain
grain
feeding.
feeding. Yeah,
Grain
grain
feeding,
feeding.
sorry.
Yeah.
And so I haven't eaten grass-fed beef over the course of my life. When you think about it, if you are eating grass-fed beef, there is a small yet enough amount of omega-3s you can intake, but I don't. That's why I thought maybe grass, grain, sorry, confusing, grain-fed eaters might need a kind of a intentional uptake of omega-3s in the form of marine food. I wanted to, know your opinion.
Yeah, I think it's for that reason alone is probably good, but the other issue is then if you get the farm stuff, then you still got the same problem,
Yes,
So
yes.
you've got to be getting it from a reliable place where you can make sure, like, for example, if it's salmon, that it's wild caught salmon,
Oh,
or
difficult.
um
Plastics and stuff as well, right?
but yeah, I think the thing in Japan though, I think you can get grass-fed beef, and it's cheaper.
Expensive. Oh, really?
Because
Beat the bar?
I'm pretty sure if you get it Australian stuff
Oh,
that's grass-fed,
okay. Mm,
I think.
yeah,
But
yeah.
and it's cheaper, like if I buy kind of Wagyu Tokachi sliced beef,
Oh, I'm not fancy.
then that'd be like, for a few hundred grams, that's 1,000 yen. Whereas the
Yes.
same amount of Australian sliced beef, that's only gonna be 600 yen.
Okay. My beef currently I consume is 100, 50 yen per 100 gram. Very cheap. That's my budget. Still, for me, too fancy.
Where do you find that? Where do you find
Local supermarkets. Local supermarket. This supermarkets uh, um, having branches only Yokohama area. I live in Yokohama, so that they are making an effort to provide very cheap beef. That's my, only, my beef source. By the way, they are coming from Australia. I haven't eaten Japanese beef for years. I forgot
Oh,
what it's like.
okay. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah. So if it's coming from Australia, I'm pretty sure Australian beef has to be grass fed.
Oh, the certain extent
Yeah.
until that moment
Yeah. So it might be grain finished. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
they say that.
Um. So can you tell us about how we can see your videos? You have a YouTube channel and
Oh, that's a good that's thing to talk about. I had a YouTube channel, but the thing is that I talk about cancer biology in a true cancer biology, true oncology, which YouTube doesn't like it. That is why YouTube, take many videos down. And not only that, but also I talked about, hey, female needs the testosterone hormone. And I said that. They took my video down. It was the last moment. Okay, I had enough. I was sick and tired. freaking YouTube. So I left YouTube, but you can reach out to me on Instagram. Are you Sami? This is my name. Please find me and say hello to me. I'm happy to talk to you.
Oh, awesome. So I'll link to your Instagram in the show notes, Sammy. Thank you so much for coming back on and sharing your experience. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for inviting me back again.